joining us. This is something that we do every single year, and it's for the qualification of both district grants and global grants, and what the requirements are for your club to be able to participate in those grants. And I know for some of you that have been here many times, it's probably old news, but there's always new things that pop up. So it's great to get it. And I also feel that uh, having a repeat of these things is helpful because it's almost impossible to get it all in one shot. I can tell you that the foundation isn't easy. It isn't easy to understand, and that you get in bits and bytes, and the lights will come on multiple times. They don't go on all at once, and so the more you can hear about it, the more you'll understand it, and the more you'll feel comfortable in dealing with all of the aspects of the Rotary Foundation. So thank you for joining us. We look forward to having you participate in as many district grants and global grants as possible from all of your clubs. Mahalo.
Okay, so let's get started then. I'm going to share my screen and um, this is our annual grant qualification webinar, and this webinar covers the qualifications to get the 26-27 grant. So that's why we really encourage the PE, the president-elect, and anyone handling the grant funds or the grant projects to attend these annually. So the qualification is for annual attendance. So today, the learning plan is we're going to go over the grant program for District 5000, the funding, where the money comes from and where it goes out, how to qualify, and the agreements that we need signed and the resources. So this is what we'll be covering today. So, hey, Dave, do you want to go over the key takeaways for today?
Sure. So key takeaways are the use of the grant funds, used for the purpose to describe the application and the approval process. The deadline dates like May 31st for the return of the funds for District 5000. Disbursement authorizations, making sure that you have two people that are basically signing for vouchers for a check request or two signatures on a check, if that's how you're handling it. Complete qualification checklist by January 31st, and that's getting all of the items that need to be signed by January 31st. And we'll talk about more of these things later. And then maintain a separate club grant account. Now, that is for your financial aspect within the bank. You want to make sure that you have a grant account. Always put a little extra money in that grant account so it doesn't get closed once you end up spending all of the money, so that you have enough money so the account doesn't get closed, and know what that is. So if it's $200, you know your grant account should be whatever you need plus the $200 that's in that account. And then keep documents for up to 5 years and make sure you know where those are. They're not sitting in five different desks and five different files and five different homes. They all should be in one place for easy access.
So the types of grants that Rotary International has are basically these types is in groups. So global grants, 30,000 to up to 400,000. District grants, which are the ones that we do for our projects in our district. Disaster response grants, those are 25,000, and they cover, it's an immediate kind of grant to cover a disaster. Like we had two for our Maui fire disaster, and then programs of scale. This is for bigger projects that Rotary wants to have a longer term. So the first one that they had 3 years ago was for $2 million. With additional money, it became $6 million to eradicate or to control malaria. Okay, so those are really huge, impactful grant programs that Rotary International has. So in 2023 to 24, these are some of the stats that they had. So 485 district grants. So our district got one grant for all of our projects. So that was 30 million. Disaster response grants, 106 grants for 4 million. Global grants, 1,287 for 72 million. And then for the programs of scale for 2 million. So this was for the 23-24 program year. So the timeline again is for the 26-27 grants. the fall, and this is per our policy manuals, that we have two members attending the grant management training. And the reason why we need to do this in the fall is because when we get the information on how we're going to be spending that money in January, February, we need to know that the clubs are qualified and who's going to be qualified to receive the grant money. So we have the training. January 31st, we need all of the qualification documents in. So that would be the three documents and the memorandum of understanding, addendum, and financial plan. And that is signed for the program year for next year. So that's going to be your PE, the president for next year and the year after. Okay, so those are the two people that sign those documents. So what happens if you don't have a PE or a PN, the president-elect after next year's president? You can have the current president sign, but it's got to be two different people signing those documents. Okay, so we need the three documents. We need your tax filings filed. So that would be your IRS filing, which is due November 15th. So all of you should have done it already, unless you have an extension. And then if you're subject to GE tax, general excise tax for the state, then we need that as well, the filing. So the requirement is to show that you filed those documents for tax purposes, and then the confirmations come to us. Okay. May 31st, 2026 is when this year's grant team need to file their final report. Okay, so that is due. So actually, the rule is you file a final report 2 months after you finish the project, but no later than May 31st. And then June 15th is when the grant applications for next year need to come in. Then July 15th is when we're shooting to get the approval from Rotary International, and then August distribute the funds. So the reason why we have these deadlines is because some clubs do need that grant money early in the year for schools, for instance. One club needed schools, musical instruments for the school, and they needed the money before school started. Okay, so for those clubs who need that money soon, we really need to get their information. We need to close out this year before we can get next year's approvals. Okay, every document, all the applications, all of the forms go to this email address, grants@rotaryd5000.org. Okay, so that is the one email address. We keep all of the documents in there. Okay, and all of the documents are online. So here, if we can look at the scale, when things happen, this is the timeline. So you qualify by January 31st. Okay, you send the application by June 15th. The funding comes in July, and then the final report May 31st, and then you keep the documents for 5 years. Okay, so that's the timeline. Sorry, Dave, this was your slide, yeah. So
That's okay.
okay, go
Um,
over the
all
qualification
right. So
checklist.
for the qualification checklist, by January 31st, we need to have you folks go into the website, the D5000 website, and we'll show you where that's at, to be able to sign the memorandum of understanding, the District 5000 addendum to the MOU. And we'll explain that a little bit later, but the financial management plan is also something that you need to read and basically say that you've accepted those conditions of the financial management plan, so that every one of us is following that financial management plan. There won't be any excuses if we say, well, I didn't keep records for 5 years. And that's what, this is what is required. Evidence of the tax filings, both the federal as well as GE if necessary, and the evidence of the grant bank account. So we're going to need to see that bank account. We're going to need to know the number on that, your name of it, as well as the amount of funds that eventually is in there so it matches. Attend the district training of the grants training for 2 people or more, preferably the PE and person handling the grant funds. They need to be in attendance. And then also the final grant report for the current year by May 31st. So this is the website. And if you go to the website at rotaryd5000.org, there's a drop down. So if you see that club resource, you would hit on club resource and click on that. and that would automatically pop up all of those different elements, and you go to the hover over foundation grants, and that would then pop up the choices to the right, which says grants, and then you go to district grants. And so you basically have to slide over and keep all of those things open. A little tricky sometimes, so you just may have to go back and try it. But it pulls up then the next page, which shows you the reports that are required. So on the right-hand side is all of the different elements that are available for you to gather the information that's pertinent to your particular club, as well as all of the forms that are necessary for you to fill out. So it talks about the allocation of funds. You see the DDF allocation of 25-26. Well, that's for this year. And then you're going to be seeing the DDF allocation for 26-27 popping up. And that's going to be telling you what you're going to be able to have to spend for the future, for the next year. That's not out yet because we're still working on that, completing those numbers. But that also shows you the checklist, your memorandum of understanding. You can see that over there in the bottom, the TRF qualification addendum. And the addendum is one that says for all of our district grants, we're going to basically have just one account, one bank account. Instead, if we didn't have that addendum, we'd have to have a bank account dedicated for each of our district grants. And you can see how that might be a real pain for some clubs that have 10 district grants that they might do in a year. And they would have to have 10 separate bank accounts for that. So the addendum is necessary for us to be able to tell Rotary that we're only going to provide one bank account for all of our district grants in our individual club. And then the financial management plan. So here is the samples of the reports. It's pretty easy to fill out and if you read through that, you'll have no problem going through that. And one is the addendum, and the other one is the financial management report. And you got to read through that, understand it, and then sign off on it, and then turn that in to the grants group, the grants email address, so that we can go ahead and log that you've completed all of this information. Anything else, Naomi, you want to talk about that? Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
So it would be a good idea for everyone to read those documents and see what it says.
Absolutely, absolutely. I tried to squeeze it out the first year and not read it, and yeah, it bites you in the butt. So make sure you read those things. Um, Club qualification, the memorandum of understanding. You need your club president for 26, 27, and then 27 and 28 to be signing those. Again, if you don't have it, then you could have the same person, right? Naomi sign it?
No, it has to be two different people.
Two different people. That's absolutely correct. Sorry.
Okay, and the reason is these documents also cover global grants, and sometimes global grants don't happen in the same year, and so it kind of bleeds over to the next year or the next year, and that's why the next president needs to know about these requirements.
Correct. And the global grant, there's other reports that we have to fill out if you're doing a global grant, but that's done online at the Rotary International website. But you still need to fill out all of this paperwork. And then the District 5000 addendum again is that requiring that we need a bank account. Item C requiring a separate account should be open for each club sponsored grant. So it doesn't have to be a separate bank account for each one of those. This requirement applies to global grants as well as vocational trainings and global grant scholar global grants. And then the financial management plan, it talks to you about, we want to make sure that when you set up that bank account, that you're setting it up in this format, the Rotary Club of blank TRF district grants account. So check with your individual banking institutions, check with them to see how your account is listed. If it's not shown up in that way, we would like to ask you to go ahead and have them change it so it shows up that way. It makes it a lot easier for us to be able to review the documents once they're there and know that the finances are in that particular account, so we don't have to hunt for it. Maintain a dedicated bank account, grant funds deposited and dispersed to funds approved district grants. Club cash is transferred to the district grant account and sequentially paid. the expenses and the district count. Uh, Disbursements of two signatures. We do need to have two signatures on either the checks or on the check request form. And if you are asking for reimbursement for something that you've paid money out for it, and you're please don't have your name as one of the approvals on it. Get two separate people that's asking for the disbursement of those funds. So if I paid for something and I'm looking for a reimbursement for it, I'm not going to put my name down as one of the approvals. I'm going to get two other people to do that. It's just a little bit safer than having the same person who's getting the money signing for it. And the
Mhm.
club then will need to retain these documents for 5 years. And again, keep them in one place. I know a lot of people say they're doing this, but then when we try to find out where these documents are, oh, it was so and so who's no longer a member of our club. And then we're hunting to get those back. Anything else, Naomi, on that I may have missed?
So, so these requirements are on the documents that you're signing, but we didn't make these up. This is from Rotary International. And so when it says that the title has to be the Rotary Club and then the second line is TRF District Grant Account, we're serious. So that's why we ask for an actual copy of your bank statement because we need to verify that it does say District Grant Account or Grant Account, or it identifies it as the grant account. And this needs to be your club's operating account, not your club's foundation. If your club has a foundation, the money cannot go to your club foundation. The club is the entity that applied for it. The money is going to the club. The money needs to be dispersed by the club. Okay, so that is one of the reasons why we ask for that bank account. Well, we ask for it also because we need to know the real account number and the bank so we can deposit the money in there when we're ready. Okay.
Right. Everything's done electronically, so we deposit it into your accounts. We don't want to be hand delivering individual checks to each club.
Yep. Because there's a time delay when if we have to deliver it or mail it, and so we try and make that deposit directly into the account. Okay, and the reason why we need to follow these rules is because Rotary International has a MOU with the district, and we signed that with the district saying that we're going to follow those rules. We're going to follow Rotary International's rules, and Rotary is very proud of having this Charity Navigator ranking of us in 17 years in a row of having the highest ratings with Charity Navigator, meaning we use the money for our projects. There's not a whole lot going to operations, but also it's the stewardship part where we're making sure that the money is being used as it was intended. Okay, so when people make their donation to the Rotary International, they are doing it, they're donating that for doing good in the world. Okay, so we also need to make sure that we're managing that money and overseeing all of the rules from Rotary International. So when we say the money cannot be used for gift cards it's unrestricted, it's because Rotary International has those rules. So the stewardship part is about having responsible management and oversight over the grant funds. And that's why the two signatures are required so that there is oversight. We want to make sure that the reporting is done on time, that we're getting all of the receipts on time. We add them up actually. And we're looking at what you bought. And so those things that were purchased with the grant funds needs to be in line with what was approved. So the the Rotary International has this document called Terms and Conditions, and this is posted on the website. You can check if you wanted to see what the terms and conditions are that Rotary International says for district grants. There's another one for global grants, but for district grants, this is kind of what it says. It has to be with the foundation's Rotary Foundation's mission. Okay, you can't use the grant money to reimburse clubs or districts for activities, like district conferences or parties. You can't alter the project once it's approved. Okay, and you need to carry out the project as you said you're going to do it according to the application. There's a conflict of interest policy that we need to follow to make sure that money is not going into someone's pocket for someone to to benefit from the foundation money. Okay, and then we have privacy policies. And also, we would like to ask that when you have a project that you can put a sign, or if you're doing a project and you're putting a banner out there, please indicate that the money is from the Rotary Foundation. So grants cannot fund these things. So unrestricted cash donations to beneficiary or an organization. Okay, continuous or excessive support of one beneficiary or entity. Okay, purchase of land or buildings. Okay, so this is really important. I know you can read this, but let me go over these things. The Rotary Club cannot own the assets, so that's why that question on the application, who's going to own the assets, it cannot be for fundraising activities, cannot be for district conferences or conventions. You can't go to the convention on this district money. Okay, and also signs more than $1,000 is not acceptable. Okay, so not for administrative or operating or indirect program expenses for another organization. Okay, so these are the rules that if you wanted to check, the terms and condition document from Rotary International is on our website. Okay, so let's talk about where the money comes from. When your members give a donation to the Rotary Foundation and they put it to the annual fund share, okay, that money comes back to us to use for district grants and global grants. Okay, so 3 years later, you get that money back. So please, when you get your grant money, you're doing your projects, let the club members that know that this is their money that they donated. And Rotary is using that money for 3 years. So Dave, you want to kind of explain how we need to support the Rotary Foundation?
Yeah, a lot of people feel that if they have their own foundation, they don't need to give money to this. But giving money to the Rotary Foundation is actually helping pay for the overhead of Rotary based on the funds that are the interest that is generated for those 3 years. So by not giving to the Rotary Foundation, you're not you're not doing your part of helping to keep our dues low. If every club started doing this, eventually we'd have to be covering the cost of the overhead of Rotary, and that would be in the form of dues instead of this process where they're using the interest for the 3 years. 50% of the money of the 100% of the money that comes back, 50% goes into the World Fund, and then 50% is given back to the district with 50% of that number going to district grants and 50% going in for global grants. So that's how you get your 100%. The 100% gets broken into two piles, 50% going into the World Fund, and then 50% coming back to our district in the form of 50% for district grants and 50% for global grants. And we've been able to help our districts be able to participate in more global grants by not having to have you match 100% when you do that with cash donations. You only have to give as little as 50%, and then you still get the 100% of the allocation that is available for global grants. So I think that covers it, but if you have any questions, we're happy to answer those. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Rotary, we're talking about 100% of the money that we get back, but just know that Rotary takes 5% out
That's
for
correct.
their admin. So actually it's 47.5% of the total that we get for the World Fund, and then the other 47.5 goes to DDF. So DDF is district designated funds. DDF half goes to district grants and half goes to global grants. But that's why for global grants, we really want to take advantage of that World Fund coming in to match that global grant DDF money that we're
Yes.
getting. Okay. So we want to just maximize the amount that we get. So for this year, 25, 26, in 22, 23, 3 years ago, okay, our district gave 295,000 to the annual fund share. Okay. Rotary took out 5%, so 47.5 to a World Fund, so 140,000 to the World Fund. Then the DDF was 140,000 to the district. Okay, so when we look at that 140,000, this is how we kind of break it down. This year, we decided to make the no match 25% of that amount for the district grants. And it's because some of the clubs don't have that cash to put in. So we reduce the amount of the matching portion. So of that district grant portion, and sorry if this is really confusing, but we wanted to be fair on trying to get that money back to all of the clubs. So of the district grant money, 25% of that is no match. Then you match 25%, and then the global grant is for the other 50%. So when you take into account how much cash the club is putting in to do the matching, okay, so that would be 33,000. So right here, 33,000. And the matching for Club Cat for global grants is 35,000 because we had a little bit more for global grants. And it was because we take an admin fee off of the district grant side. So that's why this doesn't really match up to half. Okay, and then the World Fund matches it by 80%. So a total of 267 going to district grants and global grants. So that's no thing to poo-poo about. This is really it's impactful money that we get to use for our grants that we choose. You
Mhm.
have that. You have that. The power to choose where this money is going. Okay, so so we got that calculation. And this is the spreadsheet that Dave does every year. He's showing here what the clubs had in donations for 3 years. Okay, so Ala Moana, this is the what they did in 21, 22, 23. Now, if we went by straight what you gave 3 years ago, some years you have more than others. That means your money that you're getting back is going to be uneven. So what our district decided to do, yeah, it's going
Yeah,
up and
that's the
down.
way it goes up and down too much if we didn't have an average.
Yeah, look at Alamoana. It's 15,000 and 21 and 11,000, 11,000. So one year they would have a lot and the other years would be less. So our district decided we're going to take an average. So what we do is we average the 3 years. We come out with an average. Okay, then we add it up. And then we use a prorated percentage of the total. So when we use that prorated amount, so Ala Moana contributed this much of the total pot, so they get that percentage of the total pot, and then this is what they get in no match, match, and global grants. Was that okay? Got that, everybody?
Clear as mud.
Yep, yep. Okay, so this allocation is on the website, and it's, we're trying to be as fair as possible that you're getting back money that your club put in. Some districts don't do that. Some districts say, this is all of the district's money, and we're going to use all of it for the grants that the district wants to do, or you have to apply. Maybe you get more money, but then only a few clubs would get and take advantage of the district grant. This way, you get back what your club members put in, and you
Right.
decide what kind of projects you use. Okay. Okay.
The,
So,
the other reason we wanted to do it this way was there might be a situation where one president decides he doesn't want to put a lot of focus on the foundation, and we didn't want to penalize the club because 3 years down the road, that number was so low that they couldn't do any of the projects they were doing. So by averaging it over 3 years, if you had one bad year, it's going to even that out. So it's not going to have as much of a impact on how much you're going to be getting back because we've averaged it over 3 years instead of each individual year, 3 years back.
mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so every year we get this money back from Rotary International, but know that we also get about 12 to 14,000 in additional money, which are earnings from endowment funds. So someone from a club passed away, and they in their estate planning they gave 25,000 or 50,000, whatever the dollar amount, to an endowment fund, and Rotary invests that money, and the earnings come back to the district. Okay, so if someone in your club donated money to the endowment fund, the share endowment fund, and they want that earnings to come back, it'll come back to your club. Okay, so that's additional money that in low bad times when you don't have as much donations, you're still going to get the earnings on those endowment funds.
So that means you're going to see a little bit of a different change on next year's spreadsheet because we're going to have to create another row that shows those funds that are going to be coming to the individual clubs that had members that created an endowment that is supposed to go back to that specific club. So we'll still keep the average like it is, but we're also going to have a line item for those one-offs of endowment funds that are coming back to that club for their own use. And there's no restriction on matching those funds. It does, though, require you to use it for the right purpose and not to have free use of that money. So you can't use it for a party or any of that. You've got to follow the rules of your contributions to worthy projects.
Mhm. Yep. And so it's the gift that keeps on giving. So
Mhm.
please encourage your members to think about the benefactor or bequest society or endowment fund to support the Rotary Foundation so that your club can keep on getting funds for your projects. Okay. So for the global grants, you may say, hey, $3,000 is not much for a global grant. But again, here, this is what that club earned, and that club can decide where they want to put that money, what global grant they want to put it to. Or they can pass and say, I don't, it's up to you guys. You can just spend it. But here, we're trying to give back to the club their right to say where the money is going. Okay,
Mhm.
so let's move on to the application. So the application, it has a funding portion where you're going to put in how much you have for match and no match. So this came straight from the spreadsheet. So remember, Alamwana had this spreadsheet, 1,608 for no match and match. In the application, you're going to put it right there. So those numbers come straight from that allocation spreadsheet. Okay. And so the matching portion, you got to, in order to use this, you need to match it with cash. So that's how this application comes in. And each application is going to be for a certain project. So one club, if you have 10 different projects, you need 10 different applications because the application will tell us what it's being used for. So when we apply for that money to Rotary International, we take your information from the application and we put it into the spreadsheet. So if you can imagine who's going to put all of this stuff in there, we have to put what category it is. That's why the application says what category is it? Is it community service, education, health? Okay. And then from there, we have to describe the project. And so that's why on the application, that first sentence, we want you to just describe the project so that we can put that into the application to Rotary International. Rotary International is going to look at this description of the application of the project and decide whether it's approved, it's within the guidelines or not. Okay. And then once we put this in, so last year we had what 90 different applications that we had to input to this spreadsheet. Okay, so it's going to take us time to vet. So Paul Saito is the one who looks at your applications to make sure it's kind of in line with Rotary International. Okay, then we have to put it into this spreadsheet, and then we're going to have to send it to Rotary International, and they look at every single line item, and they will approve it in bulk. Okay, so if one of these doesn't make sense or it's not something that they would approve, it stops the whole application from being approved. Okay, so that's why when we ask for information, when we ask for a complete application, it's because we need to do this whole big spreadsheet. Okay, so really it's important, that we're going to use the DDF the way that you have it on the application. You're going to deposit it to your club's district grant account. You're going to disperse the funds from the grant account for the approved district grants. So make sure that you're not spending any money until you get the approval on that application. Okay. So for district grants, the contributing cash needs to go into that grant account. Okay. Okay. Next slide. Okay. Where is the next slide? Okay. So the district policy manual for foundation does require you to use this voucher form. So on this voucher form, and this template is on the district website. It has it explains, the disbursement of this money, who is going to, and then there's a place for two people to approve it. So this voucher needs to be for every single disbursement from the grant account. Okay. Final reports are due 2 months after completion of the project, but no later than May 31st. You can send all of the receipts. So if you have a whole bunch of receipts, you might want to put it on one piece of paper so that, when we're looking at the receipts, we don't have to look one by one. Some people will take a picture on their phone and then send it individually. It's a little hard to see what the amounts are and to add it up. So if you can help us out, that would be terrific. And anytime you're sending documents to the grants at rotaryd5000.org, try and name your document with your club first, your club name first. So Honolulu Sunrise receipts or Honolulu Sunrise final report, so that when we file it, we know, it's for your club. Okay. So on this the application is your initial application that gets approved. This same form, you can use it for a revised form. The same form, you can use it for the final report. So you don't have to use another form to do the final report. You just have to mark it final report and then mark the places that has the information on how much you spent. Okay, so remember now that it was the purpose that was completed. So say you did five projects. One was for Ryla, one was for school supplies, and school supplies you had to buy more. And Ryla, you only sent two people. The purpose for Ryla and school supplies was approved. So you can add money to one, the school supplies, and take less on the Ryla, but the bottom line has to come out to your allocation amount.
And that
Okay?
would show up as, you would have, in that case, Naomi, they would have to mark it as revised, correct?
Revised, right?
Yes.
So we know it's different. But you can't send in a final report for a totally different project. If we see that it's totally different, we need to go back to Rotary International, get a new approval, and get that new purpose approved. Okay. So anytime you feel that you can't do that project for some reason, or there's a new need that comes out that's greater, you can allocate that money to a different project, but you need to get a new application revised, an application that's marked revised, and we need to get the approval from Rotary first before you can use that money for that new project. Okay? Okay. So when we get the final reports, about 15 to 20% of the district grants are going to be audited. This is required by Rotary International that we audit your grants. And so the auditor for the district will let you know that your club was selected to be audited. And these are the things that they're asking you for. Okay. So when you get if and when, if you get that notice that your club is being audited, please respond as soon as possible with all of these items. You should already have these in your folder, your 5-year folder, remember? These should already be in there. So please respond as soon as possible to the auditor so that we can get the audits completed, because we do need to complete them by September. So 3 months after the end of the year, we have to finish the audit. Okay. So please keep this in mind and keep these things in your folders so that you have them. Now, if you don't respond because everybody's busy or can't find it, guess what? You're not going to get your district grant money the following year, or the global grant. So please respond to your auditor. Okay.
All right. So one of the things that we are really encouraging as our clubs to be able to participate into more global grants. There's a lot of clubs that don't participate in global grants, and some often are doing global grants. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible. But if you can actually host your own global grant, or you could partner by just joining an existing global grant, because none of our global grants can reach their funding level without money from other clubs. So we're not looking for 100% of the clubs to do a global grant, but we would like to see 100% of the clubs participating in a global grant. So what we need you to do is on this form is to send, of the global grants that are available out there, we would like to support this global grant or that global grant with this much money of what we have allocated. So you have a certain amount of money that is designated for global grant use. You can take that global grant money and say, I'm going to go ahead and give 100% of that to one particular global grant. Or I can say, I want to give a third of it to this global grant, and a third of it to this global grant, and a third of this for this global grant. I'm looking at Akiko, and I know Akiko's club divides up their funds to multiple global grants, and a lot of clubs do that, so they can participate in more than one global grant. So all you need to do is put down the global grant number on this form, how much DDF you're going to do, and how much matching cash you're going to do. You don't have to match 100%, but you do need to match a minimum of 50%. So let's just say that you've got $1,000 allocated. You can take that $1,000 and say, here's $1,000 of DDF, and I could either match $500 or $1,000 for matching cash. And then the additional cash is left blank unless you decide, hey, we've got a lot of extra cash, so let's just throw in another $1,000 of our own cash to run this particular job. So there still will be a 5% TRF charge of the amount of money that you're sending. And that's just to help cover the cost of all this money for global grants goes to Rotary International. And then Rotary International, once everything is approved, goes ahead and sends that to the host club or the host organization that is running that global grant for payment, and they have to be responsible for all of the disbursements of the funds. So retain copies of the global grants, commitment letters. Make sure that the PE and incoming board have copies and understand the commitments so that multiple
Yes.
years later, we're not going to have any problems. And commit to existing grants, approved funds are canceled. So basically, we're saying is that these monies are not released until it's been funded or canceled. Um, Go ahead, next page.
Well, can we also go over if we're okay, so was due November 1st for this year's grants. And
Yes.
so next year it'll be November 1st, most likely for next year's grants. But if that project that was committed or that you pledged to doesn't happen until next year, your club needs to set aside that money that you pledged so that you can pay that amount next year when this grant is being funded. So that's why it needs to be signed by the PE, this year's president and the PE, because if you need next year's, the PE knows about this. So you need to make sure that you keep this in your record. Your treasurer knows to set aside that money for your pledge.
And the November 1st deadline was established so that we could get these funds allocated as quickly as possible so that we can get these grants moving so that we can finish them in a reasonable period of time. If you folks have not allocated your funds for this year's global grants and you still want to participate, reach out to the grant committee, reach out to Naomi, myself, or anybody within the grant committee and let us know your intentions that you still want to utilize your funds for this global grant, and we can see if that can be approved.
Yeah. And this year is an unusual year. There is an urgency to make sure we're using our DDF. So we need to know if you're going to be pledging or not within, a few weeks, well, maybe a month. That's it. But we need to get these grants approved with the funding sources all lined up in January. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Next page. Okay, so there's district grants and global grants, and these are the differences between the two. On the global grants, the cost is $30,000 minimum. And that's all inclusive. So that's the match, including DDF, including the World Fund match. So it's not all $30,000 coming from your club, and it's also your partner clubs that will be supporting that. Funding of the World Fund DDF compared to district grants, it's all DDF and mandatory cash. Applications are online for global grants. Where on the district grants, it is in our district website. Areas of focus for global grants requires you to fall that your area that you're working on is going to fall within the 7 areas of focus. So you need to make sure it's going to fall into one of those 7 areas of focus. We'll share that soon on the next slide. but there is no area of focus requirement for district grants. So you can go ahead and support anything you would like in that. Um, Partnerships and host clubs you need to have partnerships and host clubs for global grants, and you do not have to have partnerships for district grants. And you must have a sustainability requirement for global grants, and that's not required for district grants. Measurability requirement is required as well as on the district grants. And the scholarship, you can use the funds for global grants to provide a scholarship, uh, postgraduate educational scholarship, if you so desire.
Yeah, so there's a lot of requirements for a global grant, yeah, and a bigger amount that's required. So some clubs will want to use their district grant money for international projects. So, for instance, Couple A took some of them, I think it was 5,000 of their money, and they funded a project in Nepal. So it was a district grant, so you didn't need to go through all of those other things on the left-hand side, and they were able to buy PE equipment for schools. And guess
Mhm.
what? For that school, they used to have people, the kids that didn't come to school, okay? But after they got the PE equipment, 100% they're coming to school. So you can use district grant money for international service projects too.
Yeah, it's a real simple process. Now, when we talked about the seven areas of focus, this is the seven areas of focus. These have been in place for a long time. The most recent one that was added, the seventh one is environment. So environment was the last one to be added. So when you folks are looking for a global grant, it needs to fall into one of these, and it could be multiple, but we strongly suggest that you kind of pick the one that's the most favorable because it's easier to get it approved than having multiple areas of focus. Because if you put multiple areas of focus in the global grants, it's then going to require you to justify that at the end. So you have to have your report to justify each one of those. So choose which area of focus is the main area of focus for your global grant if you're doing one, and then go with that.
And we also have training for doing a global grant. We had that in October, September, October. So every year we have that. But please know that if you have a global grant that you're interested in doing, come to the International Service Group and talk it out because it is a lot more involved when you do a global grant.
Okay, the requirements for the global grant, the district must be qualified in order to receive the grant funding. So that means it needs to go through that Rotary International website, fill out that global grant with your host club. The host club is the club that is actually doing the work and it's being brought to that particular location. In most cases, that's the international destination. The international club would be the club that is partnering with that host club, and that could be in another country. That could be here. That could be the United States. So that could be any place else. And those two are the ones that are running and filling out those reports. So they're basically doing the work of that particular um, uh, global grant application and making sure that all of the money then is collected to fund that particular global grant. And that's where they ask other clubs to help out. Qualification process. District or club understandings of financial responsibilities, and including the stewardships prepared to take them on. The qualification must be completed within each year. Club qualification for global grants by someone taking the grant management seminar is a new requirement. So there is in the Learning Resource Center a requirement for you to go ahead and take that class. I would strongly suggest that you do that. They do monitor that and they know who's taken it and who hasn't. And so if you're the foundation international chair and you're doing a global grant, they're going to want to make sure that you've gone ahead and taken that particular course. So the thing that's really important on global grants is the sustainability. And they're going to want to, there's multiple steps in that sustainability. First, you're going to want to work with that global grant, that host club or the host club, and basically work with them so that they are going to be working with their community. Too many times we've seen global grants that did not work out because they didn't actually survey the community. They didn't talk to the community what their real needs were. they tried to shove down the throat something that they felt they needed, but they didn't realize that culturally that wasn't going to work in that particular area of the country or the world. And so it's important for us to start with the community and identify what their needs are and get that buy-in from multiple sources within that community. And that's where you hope that your host club, the one that's doing the global grant, is actually taking the reins on that and making sure that they get the reports from all those different buy-ins for the different groups within that community that says, yes, this would be beneficial for us. This is how we could do it and how we can help too. Sustainable step number 2 is encourage local ownership. We want to make sure that that club that is putting in that global grant, that host club, has got ownership to identify the members and to help pioneer what the how this work is going to go on. We found that a lot of times when somebody doesn't get ownership, then when there comes to be a situation of maintenance, then they don't know who's going to maintain that particular equipment. And the next one, provide training. At the very end, we want to make sure that there's training on how to use the equipment, training on how to maintain the equipment, and making sure that that equipment is going to be sustainable so that it's going to last for the life expectancy of that particular project. If it's a safe water drinking project, we want to make sure that everything that's being installed, they know how to run it, they know how to maintain it, and they know how to support it. And that we are using local sources to help support that so that if there is a problem, they know where they can go ahead and get that equipment repaired or fixed in that local community.
Okay, there are a lot of resources on the Rotary International website. There's guides for global grants. There's a learning center. Lots of information there for you to look at to learn about how to do the global grants or the district grants or foundation. On the zone website, there's an expert hub area where if you go to that Zone 2627 website, you can find people who can help you with all of these areas of focus. Okay, so key takeaways again. You want to use the grant funds for the purposes that it was approved for. You don't spend the money until after the funds are in your account. You're going to you finish your grant and have the final report by May 31st and send the final grant in. If you're not using that money, you need to return it to the district as soon as possible because we want to deploy it to another project. We do not want to send it back. We want to use it in our district. Okay. Authorizations need to be approved by 2 people. You cannot carry over any funds to the following year. You need to use that money. Okay, so if you've got money for Ryla and you didn't have that many kids, so that money needs to come back to the district or be repurposed for something with Ryla. Okay, keep your documents for 5 years. So let's see. I think there's some questions in the chat. So let's go over some of the questions. Anybody want to raise your hand for questions?
Cindy has a question. Go ahead, Cindy, you're on mute.
So if you have a grant, a district grant, and you're not going to, let's say you have 2 district grants, and one of them you're not going to be able to use it for what you requested, can you put that money to your other district grant that was approved?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so as long as the purpose is approved, you can use that money. But
Okay.
if it's a totally different project, you need to get a new application done.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to avoid having a new project brought in at the end because it's going to really mess up the approval process and slow down the whole process because we have to go back to Rotary International for approval.
Understood. Okay.
Okay, if
Do-
everybody can put
do-
on their video so we know that you're still here, that would be great.
Do we have to notify grants before we do that? Before we switch money from one project to another one that's approved?
No, because
No.
it's the purpose that's got approved. It's on your final report that you're going to say is revised, and you can just explain in your email that you didn't do one project, but you're going to use all of the money on this other project that was approved. So
Okay.
on your grant application, when you're doing the final report, you just adjust the dollar amounts. So as long as you're within your allocated amount, you're good.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Naomi,
Yes.
question. So if you have more than one grant in submitting the final report, do you submit one for both or one for each one?
One for each one because they're
Okay.
separate.
And
Thank you.
also another question. What I'm hearing is that we can use district funds for global grants, but no, you're saying no.
International project, not a global
Okay.
grant.
International projects.
Yeah.
That's correct.
But can you use global funds for district grants?
No.
No.
No. Okay.
Then I have one more question, sorry.
Cindy?
For a global grant, they don't always get approved. So how do we know that that grant's been canceled? We're still holding that money in our grants account, but it's been 2 years.
We're supposed to let you know that it was canceled. So, do you have a specific grant?
Off the top of my head, I don't, but I do remember that we didn't get notified to turn in our money.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, so I can double check that and email you.
Yeah, please send us
Make
that.
sure. Okay.
There have been a few global grants that were canceled for reasons that we didn't have any control over. And so those announcements will probably be forthcoming.
Okay. I just want to make sure that money is able to go to use somewhere else.
Yeah, so we can allocate that to a different project then, right?
Not
No,
if it's a
because
global grant.
that's club cash.
That's club money, so it just
Yeah,
goes
and
back into our.
yeah, and the allocation for global grant is gone. You're not able to use it after the year.
Okay.
Quickly, David, there's a couple of questions in the chat. One from Christopher Puttick. Does D5000 have DDF funds that are going to expire at the end of 5 years? Then he explains some 40 million in DDF was returned to TRF from around the world this past year.
We're going to be using all of our leftover DDF. There's nothing that that we're going to lose. We're going to either allocate it towards something, or we prefer to use it for a district global grant.
Yeah, there's several ways that we're going to be able to do that, and what we're planning on doing is we're going to use it for other needs that are necessary in order for us not to have to return any of those funds back to Rotary International. It could be the form of Polio Plus payment. It could be the form of an endowment to our district, but it's not going to be lost. So we're not going to be in a situation where if there's any funds that are left over that they're going to expire and they have to go back to Rotary International.
Thank you.
Great. And then there's a question from Jeff Loft, downtown Honolulu. If we use disbursement approval vouchers and have two approval signatures, do we also need checks with two signatures? Or is it possible to have? Go ahead.
A lot of the banks don't even allow two signatures anymore. Some do, but they don't always even audit that and make sure that it has two signatures. So I think the voucher is a better way of handling it, and either have a single signature on the check or two signatures on the check if you can do so. But I would say definitely on the vouchers, make sure the check approval request or check request form has both signatures on it.
Yeah, the bank will allow it. It's just that they're not going to monitor it. So you
Yeah.
can't put a restriction that you have to have two signatures on a check. They're not going to check for it.
Yeah, they're not gonna say, well, I didn't see the second signature, and I shouldn't have accepted that check. They're just gonna say that they approved it because there was one signature on it.
Mhm. Hey, Sean.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Hi guys. Yeah, you kind of know our situation. We lost our 501c. We're still working on that. But because we do have some funds, will we lose that if we're not able to apply
Yeah. So if
You
you're
know,
not able to use those funds, that's where we have a second round for district grants, and we allow other clubs to apply for the leftover money. So if you're able to get reinstated and do all of the qualifications, you can just let us know so we can keep that money aside for you and not use it. But at
okay,
the end of the year, it's gone. So any money that's not used, we got to return it. So we prefer not to return it. So that's where we use it for different another grant. So somebody might have a application, a project that needs more money. So we can just use it, apply it to an application that was already approved.
got
Yeah,
it. Thank
folks,
you. Okay.
the same thing holds true for international global grants. On global grants, if you're not going to use the money that's allocated, then that too goes to a second round and allows us to fund some of the projects that might need some additional funding in order to complete those projects. And so that money might go to complete those and get them done. We really want the clubs to get involved with these global grants. We want you to participate. We want everyone to understand the joy and the pleasure of going to an international destination and seeing the faces on these kids on these kids' faces when you go out there to see how you're making a difference. That's life changing. And if your club isn't participating in that, you're missing out on that best part of that global grant. So I really encourage in your clubs to take that step to say, even if it's $500 or $100, is to participate in a global grant because you have every right to go and participate and travel to that location. Obviously, we're all paying our own dime to go out there, but it doesn't matter if it's $1 or if it's $5,000. You're still a participant in that global grant, and you could fly out there and be one of the numbers that are out there to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So I hope you can participate in a global grant. It is life changing. Any other questions? All right.
Oh, we're good?
Benson, do you want to close the meeting? Or Nancy? I see Nancy joined us.
Right. Well, aloha. This is only my fourth Zoom Rotary meeting today,
Oh,
tonight.
you get the
Yeah,
prize, Nancy.
I know. Well, usually I'm somewhere on an airplane, but I fly tomorrow, but I'm actually in Dallas, Texas. But I'm doing family and things for the weekend. But I'm really thrilled because I see so much participation in our grant training, which of course we need to have and we need to understand it. And I want to thank Naomi and David and Benson and these folks that are really, really good at this to understand what to do because it's all Greek to me still, and I keep attending and keep thinking at some point. But until you actually come to these classes and work through the details, I think it's really a challenge. So I thank you for all attending and beginning that journey or continuing your journey. But what David just said is so true. I was able to go on a global type mission and to Fiji 2 years ago. And when we give those books and those things to those children, it is really, really heartwarming. And I think too, to see, you hear these different things, and I think I've seen some poverty here in America with my housing and that type of thing. But I'll tell you, you see those countries where you can't even drink the water and that type of stuff, and you go, I mean, people die because they drank water from a stream or they turned on the water tap and the whole family dies because something, that's really what Rotary's doing to stop that is monumental. So God bless you all, friend. And what you're doing in the community with your district designated grants and stuff is all amazing. So work hard and then we'll share. If there's like, Sean, I know you guys are having that issue and you're trying to work through it, and we're going to try and help each other so other clubs don't slip up and not file their general tax returns, and certainly their foundations don't miss out on doing that. So anyway, let's be all successful together because we're going to unite for good. Yep. All right.
Well,
Thank you. And everybody, have a great
rem
Thanksgiving.
yeah, but remember, it's foundation month. So this is foundation money that we want to come in so that you
Yes.
can do more good in the world. So these
Yes.
grant money is from your donations. So thank
And,
you all.
yeah.
Happy
Thank you all.
Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.